Welcome in, Big Ten fans. It is another Friday night here at the Voice of College Football, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. You know what that is. We take your calls, we take your questions and comments in the chat as well about Big Ten football and everything concerning the Big Ten as we enter the month of May. Of course, the next couple months we would expect to be somewhat quiet. However, that means it's ranking season. It's ranking season just about everywhere you turn. Everybody's got a ranking for everything, and we will as well here at the Voice of College Football. And of course, during the season, it's our top 25 that actually makes sense. If you are joining us for a first time during in-season play in college football, we have a treat for you. Week 1, look out, get ready, get prepared, get locked in, brace yourself for our Week 1 college football rankings. The top 25 that actually makes sense. Yes, it's been on hiatus, of course, with the rest of college football off the field. But look out. Again, if you've just joined us, as many have just during the off season, and we love you being here. Thank you so much for joining us. Top 25 that actually makes sense coming Week 1 of college football. In the meantime, we will rank the teams going into 2024. How meaningful is that? It's not, but it's fun. And we will try to rank those teams based on valid information. Of course, back before the transfer portal, it was simply, okay, you look at last year's results, you look at last year's team, and then you see, okay, who left for the NFL draft? Was there a coaching change? Which, of course, throughout most of college football, there was not. So you had the same head coach, but you may have had some staff changes. So you had to look at the staff changes. You look at how good the team was last year. There would be on occasion those teams that you thought, okay, this team was better than what they showed last year. Or this team, they ran into some wins. They got a little bit lucky. They had a really good field goal kicker. They hit a couple from 50 plus to pull out some games. Maybe it leaned on their side a little bit the previous season. You go through the additions, the subtractions, of course, the recruiting class, and then you look at those NFL draft losses and you say, okay, this is how good the team is. And keep in mind with my rankings, I don't rank the schedule. Too many people out there ranking the schedule, which, of course, is their choice to make that approach to their rankings and say, and that is seems to be the thrust, the core, the impetus for them making rankings is that they're basically the first and foremost thing in their mind is I'm ranking the schedule. I'm basically showing you this team and who they're going to play. And this is why they're going to go 9-3. Okay. That's a prediction. We will make those as well. So we will make the predictions, but in terms of ranking the teams, I rank them based on how good the teams are, regardless of who they play. I'm not ranking a schedule. I'm ranking the team. That's like our player rankings. We release Big Ten quarterback, running back, wide receiver player rankings. Had expected to go through the rest of college football. We have in the past. Didn't have any real incentive to do it this season, but if you've got a request or you believe that other people would care about rankings of players in other conferences or to finish off the Big Ten, because again, we delivered the running backs, wide receivers, and quarterbacks rankings here at the Voice of College Football. Give those a look. And again, we have gone the entire distance throughout college football in the past, all 5 conferences. There's 4 now, 5 conferences, and that's 12 positions per. I think it's something in that range. We've done quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, offensive line, defensive line, linebackers, corners, safeties. Yes, we've done it all in the past. So we might do a few more of those, but didn't have the incentive, a lot of things going on and so forth. Got to, of course, gravitate to the content that you people want to watch, and it's not necessarily player rankings, but we will do program rankings. Of course, there's going to be program rankings for 2024. So for me, there's a difference, significant at times difference between a team ranking a team for a particular college football season and ranking that program. 2 separate deals, ranking the team, ranking the program. They should be fairly close most of the time. But we will rank the programs here at the Voice of College Football. But what we're working on right now over the last 3 or 4 days behind the scenes, all-time program rankings. All-time program rankings. Can't wait to get to those. I hope to get us in a position where on Monday we will release the first conference and then the second, third, and fourth. And it's a bit awkward, of course, with the Pac-12 teams going to the Big Ten, the Pac-12 teams scattering to the ACC, and then, of course, the influx of the Big 12 with 4 schools coming in from the Pac-12 and all of that mess, because we're now comparing teams that participated in a particular conference for decades that are now in another conference, and to compare them is a bit sketchy. However, understand that the entire process is not just a numbers calculation. That is the core of it. That is the basis of it. It should be determined on numbers, who's winning games and winning championships. However, it's got to be put into context as well. Just look at the Big Ten, of course. We are going to list conference championships. Well, can Rutgers and Maryland have as many conference championships as anyone else? Well, they've only been in the conference for 10 seasons. And of course, they've won 0 put together. And that 0 is likely to stay at 0 for a long, long time. But still, to be fair, they're only 0 for 10. Indiana is 0 for 1,000,000. When's the last time Indiana won the Big Ten? 1967. So Indiana is 0 for about 55. And then we've got, of course, the typical Ohio State-Michigan debate that I would be shocked. I would be somewhat disappointed. I would be pleased in some ways, but I would also be disappointed if we were able to make it through a complete Big Ten show, let alone any other show. Miami, Florida State, anybody else that we do here at the Voice of College Football. And for me not to see a Michigan-Ohio State argument in the chat, that would be a big upset. So concerning Big Ten championships, of course, Michigan's got the most. So Michigan fans, be proud. You've got the most. But Ohio State has the most since they entered the league. So again, you've got those types of things. So we are for the smart fan here at the Voice of College Football. So we're not just spitballing rankings. We think Alabama's got the best program of all time. Oh, we think maybe Notre Dame's number 2, and we think maybe Michigan's 3, and we think maybe Oklahoma's 4. No, we don't spitball it and just, nope, full grid, full measurements, winning percentage, bowl wins, major bowl wins, AP rankings points, and you say, Mark, you're constantly cutting on the AP rankings. What are you doing here? You're going by the AP rankings? Yeah, I'm going to go by the AP rankings in this way. Of course, I don't have time to go through the history of college football back to 1936 and review all the rankings to make sure that they're correct. So we have to trust them to a certain extent because the final rankings are the most accurate. Number 1. If there's a team that finishes number 5 in the country, I think we're pretty safe to say that, hey, maybe they should have been number 3, maybe they should have been number 6, but they're the number 5 team in the country. It's not like they should be the number 23 team in the country. So the AP rankings over a long period of time, we're going back to 1936, very accurate. If you take them in mass, they're kind of like recruiting rankings. Take them in mass. And again, teams get ripped off, don't they? Teams do get ripped off. Minnesota fans, this is a Big Ten audience. Minnesota fans, any out there? Our buddy Minnesota Dave, any others? Any Minnesota fans watching right now? I'd love for you to comment in the chat if you're watching live. If you're watching later, I would love for you to comment because here's exactly a good case right here. When we look at rankings, and there's this kind of thought process out there that if you get ranked at the end of the year, okay, you're a good football team. If you didn't get ranked, then you're suddenly awful. Those are all the awful teams. These are the good teams. And at 26, it just becomes teams just fall off a cliff. Well, let's understand that teams number 26 through 40, 45 are pretty much just as good as number 25 and have a justification, probably 10 or 12 of them, of being ranked. And I bring that up for Minnesota fans because back-to-back years, keep in mind how many 9-4 teams get ranked at the end of the season, especially teams that won bowl games. Almost all of them get ranked that were in the Power 5, now Power 4. Minnesota had back-to-back seasons in 2021 and 22, finishing 9-4, did not get ranked. Now, I'm not saying that they should have been ranked. I would have to go back and look at all the teams, and I know that at least one of those 2 seasons, I had them in my final top 25. What I'm merely saying is whether they finished 27 or 29 or 20, whatever, that's a fallacy of the rankings, is that they stop. Over the course of time, you can't properly evaluate programs and teams if you have rankings that stop at 25. Why 25? That makes no sense. It's just a random number. It's a completely random number. It's a number that's applied to things because they're completely random. There are sometimes numbers applied to things because the number signifies something. But in this case, and I would do this, I did it once, maybe twice. I know I did it once for sure, just to blow people's minds. I ranked like 17 teams. I think I did this twice because I think I shorted it one time and another time I added. But just to blow people's minds, just to shake some people up out of their cobwebs, I just took a different number and I ranked 17 teams that week. And then another time I ranked like 43 teams. And people were like, what? You can't do that. What? Why not? So my point was that every team should be ranked. Why does it stop at 25? That's just where the list stops. That's funny because it actually doesn't stop at 25. Those services rank more than 25 teams. They just choose to give you a list of 25. There is a 26 and 27 and 28. So anyway, rankings are coming, all-time program rankings. We are going to go by conference. So we're going to have a whole lot of fun with this. So please join us. We're going to deliver videos. And again, I'm not spitballing. Winning percentage, bowl wins, major bowl wins, AP point rankings throughout the years. The AP has a whole system. It's not a complicated system. I believe it's strictly if you finish number 1 in the country, you get 25 points. If you finish number 2, you get 24 points. Number 3, you get 23 points, and on down the line. Again, the only fallacy is there are teams that have just as good of resumes that get left off that don't get any points for that particular season. We'd have to go all the way back to 1936 and review all the teams and do that. And of course, that's not happening. If somebody could pay me, somebody could deliver like a check for $100,000 and say, get this ranking system to a T, I would do that. Because one thing we're going to address during this rankings process is we are going to, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, we're going to look at how long teams were in conferences. I guess we could do that. I guess we could, I could go through, that takes a little bit more work. No, it takes a lot more work. I'd go through every team, is what I'm getting at, and I would rank, and I would figure out the percentage of conference championships they have for the time that they were in the conference. Michigan State joined the Big Ten in 1953. Was that the year? 49, 53, somewhere around there. So Michigan State's out like 40 to 50 years from just about everyone else in the Big Ten. Penn State, of course, a perfect example. And I would have to say for Penn State fans out there, Penn State's run in the Big Ten has been rather disappointing. From a record standpoint, it's not been so disappointing. They came in, did Penn State in 1993, and delivered a strong program. Joe Paterno had it rolling. They were coming off that national championship in 82, 86, went to the Orange Bowl to win the national championship in 85, had strong teams throughout. They entered the Big Ten. A lot of people thought they would dominate the Big Ten. They had really strong teams throughout the rest of the 90s. And, however, did not win a Big Ten championship. But again, it was 10-2, 10-2, 9-2s, 10-1s, all of that. Major bowl appearances, all of that. They finally won the Big Ten in 2005. And other than a couple down years right at the start of the 21st century, there was a 3-9 in there. There was a 5-6 in there. Couple down years out of Paterno, but then he turned it around in 2005. And then the transition after the Sandusky scandal and that mess and that debauchery and horrific incident and all horrible things that he did. That transition to James Franklin, Bill O'Brien before that was a little rough, but not horrible. They were Iowa, Wisconsin good, 7-6, 7-6. There was a 7-5, 8-4 in there, but Penn State is largely, during their stay in the Big Ten, really strong. The winning percentage it's not Michigan's. I cannot believe I haven't looked at that. Actually, I have looked at that. We did a Michigan-Penn State comparison since 1993. I thought that would be an apt comparison. Penn State, Ohio State, not a comparison. Ohio State's beaten them 19-5, and Ohio State's got the best record in the conference since 1993. Michigan, Penn State was a pretty good comparison. Yeah, Michigan had a definite edge once we added all that up since 1993. My point is that Penn State has been really good almost the entire time, but in terms of breaking all the way through and winning the Big Ten championship, they've only had, I think it's 4. Is it 4? 2005, 2008. I think I'm missing one. 2016, of course, is their only Big Ten championship with a championship game. I think I'm missing one in there. Oh, 1994. Yes. The great Penn State team, undefeated, Kerry Collins and company. 4 Big Ten championships for Penn State in 31 seasons in the Big Ten. That's a bit shy. That's a bit disappointing out of Penn State. Again, they've been that good. They have been the 3rd best program in the conference during that time. All right. So anyway, rankings. You'll have to wait and see which conference comes first. We'll deliver a video, do a live stream, another video, another live stream. We'll follow up each conference ranking, program rankings, 1 to whatever, with a live stream to talk to all of you to get your input. We're going through NFL draft selections, number 1 picks, conference championships, national championships. That's a touchy subject too, national championships. That's difficult to decipher to a certain extent. We're gathering data from all over the place. Winsipedia is an easy one to go there and get most of the information and then go from there. So, rankings season here at the Voice of College Football. Stay tuned for that next week. Any comments or questions coming in? Don't see anything right now. Appreciate you all being here at the Voice of College Football. The Amazon links in the description section of all the videos, including this one. All the videos, the Amazon link. What's the big deal about the Amazon link? Well, we would like to be here talking college football with all of you next year, the year after, the year after, the year after, the year after. So please, it's a easy decision to make in regards to helping grow the channel, build the channel, and do all that we do here at the Voice of College Football. Please use the Amazon link. You understand it doesn't mess up your account in any way. You still get credit for all the items. It's the same shopping experience. It does not cost you a penny. Why send all of your money to Amazon if you're still going to spend $83.14. Why send all that to a $1.7 trillion company the last I checked? But with that kind of money in the bank, you could like multiply that in interest by zillions of dollars per day. Who knows what they're worth today? That was months ago. They got to be over 2 trillion right now. So yes, so why send all that to Amazon? Support here at the Voice of College Football. The Amazon links in the description section of every video, including this one. Miami to the Big Ten. Well, Miami to the Big 12 has been the discussion this week. And I understand Big Ten fans. This is the Big Ten live show. And Miami is not a member of the Big Ten. And the talk is currently not about Miami being a member of the Big Ten. But I thought that since we did produce content there and we could connect it to the Big Ten, we would do so briefly. And again, depending on your comments and questions, leave those in the chat. And yes, the call-in line. I left this on X, and also we will take your calls on StreamYard as well. So hopefully that's spelled correctly, but you see the link in the chat. You can give me a call and join the show. So we got, again, about Miami. So it's been talked about all over the place. And I referenced a number of sources, and those sources really had nothing to do. I read no sources that said, this is why this is being talked about right now. None. It seemed to be a self-perpetuating just run of rumor mill. Now, I'm not saying it's not valid. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm not saying that there's nothing to it, but I'm just saying that I was not able to track down a source that could be in any way reputable to talk about this is where this originated in terms of it being any kind of valid. It's not like I saw the Miami athletic director made comments about Miami joining the Big 12. That was not it. Again, it seemed to be this self-perpetuating cycle of talk out there. Again, there could be something to it. We'll take that call in just a second, folks, because I do want to finish off this conversation about Miami to the Big 10, Big 12, ACC, if they're going to stay there, whatever's going to happen to that league, probably not a good situation. Or if Miami finds themselves in the SEC, we left a poll here on the community page. Please check it out. Simply, where do you think Miami's going to land? That's also on X as well. And I left my thoughts on a video. Please check out the video. I think it's pretty well constructed in regards to why or why not Miami a fit to the Big 12. Why would the Big 12 want Miami? What's the likelihood of it happening? What would it look like? How does it tie into the situation currently with Florida State and Clemson in court in 2 different states for each school, 2 different states, of course, in the state of North Carolina in federal court because the ACC has sued those schools, countersued those schools in North Carolina court, federal court. And then they have their separate case going on at the same time in the states of South Carolina and Florida. And so why that would possibly, of course, impact Miami. So take the poll, Miami to the Big 10, the Big 12, the ACC, whether they're going to stay there or find their landing spot in the SEC. And let's get to the phone lines. Erica's calling tonight. Erica, how you doing tonight?
Hey, how's it going?
It is going well.
It's been a minute since I've called, so I have a question, and I was like, why not call instead of doing a super chat, right?
Well, absolutely. So that's why we're here.
Yeah, so I don't know if you've seen on the internet, but apparently General Booty is possibly coming to Iowa.
Yes.
And I wanted to get your opinion on that.
Okay. That is a good one right there. That's one I should be better prepared for. I've seen that all over the place. Have been working on other things. Really took no notice of that, but that would be certainly a player that could come in and compete for the job. He's got all sorts of talent, and yes, that's a win for Iowa if they're able to get that caliber of player. However, there's an issue with experience level, but the beggars can't be choosers line comes to mind right now, and of course, I was not. I don't want to put them in that situation, but and not to speak about the past because nothing can be done about it, but that's why I was clamoring for Iowa to be competitive in the transfer portal after the season was over, because that's when your wealth of experienced, really strong quarterback class was there. And now you're basically looking for a player who's going to be Cade McNamara's backup, who's going to either be the backup for sure, or who is going to be in the running with Marco Lyonez in particular for the backup role. There's nobody out there that is definite starter material over Cade McNamara, and it's even a stretch thinking that somebody could possibly beat him out if he's healthy.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. I don't think I trust Cade at this point to stay healthy. And I also think that Marco has great upside, but he's not ready either.
No, and that's one of the big reasons the Cade McNamara, not just the level of play, but that was the main reason why I thought they should have dipped into the portal after the season, was because
Right.
there are 2 consecutive seasons now where Cade McNamara has not been able to complete a season, not even close.
Yeah. No, I also thought, they should go in December too. But the problem then was that we didn't really have an offensive coordinator, and that's kind of a hard sell too, I think.
It could be, but I think that there are plenty of examples of schools going out and getting quality players. Especially, I think actually, while I totally get your point, you're at a disadvantage without an offensive coordinator trying to get a quarterback.
And
Absolutely.
your Iowa on top of it, who's
And
recent,
your Iowa on
quarterback
top of it.
history. It's not like we're talking like, a school that has good quarterbacks. It's a
How,
hard sell.
however, the one difference with Iowa that's difficult to find anywhere else is there is stability everywhere else.
Yeah, but that, I don't know how much it's not that I don't buy that argument. It's just how much longer is that argument going to last? That's a whole nother topic, I know, but I'm just saying eventually Kirk will retire, and I think it's coming sooner rather than later, but that's a conversation, I guess, for another call probably.
Well, that's up to you. Is that just a feeling you have, or has he said things
Um,
that have added up to that thought?
you know, it's a gut feeling. It's nothing solid I've heard anywhere. It's been something that fans have been talking about for kind of a few years, depending on how you feel about how things are going at Iowa. Some longer than others have been discussing it. And yeah, I mean, he said, he would stay as long as Iowa would have him, and all that type of thing. But I don't know. I question how much longer it'll be, and I'm curious to know what it's going to look like after Kirk too. I mean, I'm not wishing him to get out necessarily, although at times of frustration I have said that I was done with him. But I don't know. It's interesting. It's just interesting because no excuse or no reasoning lasts forever, and he's the most tenured coach in football, and he's not going to be a coach for another 10 years. I mean, that's for sure not.
Yeah, it will quite be the situation when he moves on, because he's just such a fixture there at this point, unlike anybody else in the country. To his credit, that it will be interesting to see how much authority, power, influence he has on the naming of his predecessor, or if I'm sure they're going to certainly afford him that opportunity to discuss it, to recommend, and so forth. I don't know if that's important for him, certainly now that his son's out of the way and that's not a factor, but to be able to, or if he's just going to kind of give his blessing and stay out of the way. Uh, Coaches that have had his kind of success and tenure have gone both ways on that. So I don't know how important that is to him. And yeah, the direction Iowa would go after that would tell us a lot about just how they view themselves going forward without Kirk in regards to an aggressive style of selection or
Hmm.
someone a little bit older to try to keep some semblance of just that look of authority and that look of stability going
Hmm.
forward. Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating time, whether it's after this season or 3 years from now or 5 years. But like you just said, it's not going to be long. I don't know how old Kirk Ferentz is. He's got to be in his early to mid
70s.
60s. Oh,
Yeah,
he's in his 70s.
I believe so. Let
Okay,
me
well,
look.
there
Let
you
me
go.
see. Kirk Ferentz age. Yeah, we had talked about a scenario a while ago and where Bob Stoops would come in as sort of a transitional type piece,
Yes,
and I still like that idea.
absolutely.
He's 68 years old.
Okay. Yeah, you got
Yeah,
to think he's got 3 or 4 years, something in that range, if he chooses to stay that long. Yes, I love
yeah.
the Bob Stoops bridge to another coach. That would
I
be
think
great.
I think that, yeah, me too. And I think that might help keep some of the staff who might otherwise leave stay longer, actually. Like Phil, I think he might stay on longer. Although I know a lot of people say that it's definite that Phil's going to leave when Kirk is done. I don't know if that's 100% true. I think it would depend who they'd hire next. Like if it's someone currently on staff who's, proven that they deserve it, I think Phil could be convinced to stay on for a couple more years, depending on when it actually happens, of course. That's just my opinion, though. So are you pro booty to Iowa then?
Oh, absolutely, I
Are you a
am.
booty
And
supporter?
when we wrap up this call, well, yeah. So yes, if nothing else, folks can have all sorts of fun with this one in terms of yeah, the naming portion of this. So yes,
Moose
you
is a
can.
champ at it. He's just been putting them out there. Iowa getting booty would be bootyful.
That's one. I would have never thought of that one. I'm, of course, going the same route on all of them is the only thing I can think of. But that's a good one.
Yeah, and he made a comment about orgy as well. Orgy and booty playing in the Big Ten.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
There's
There's a
a Big
lot.
Ten.
Anyway, I'll stop
It's a Big Ten
lowering the class
championship
level
game
on
for
your
you right
panel
there.
now.
Yes.
I'll stop with that now. It's getting obnoxious, but yes, the jokes write themselves.
Yeah, he went yeah, see, I was kind of surprised. The first one was so clean and lighthearted that it then certainly went the other direction on the next one. We'll dive into some general booty when you get off the line here. We'll dive into this, and you got to be careful talking about that name as well.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to watch myself and look at some of his. I know his. Uh, again, would that be his? Is that his father who was John David Booty? Know a lot about him. His uncle. That's his uncle. His two uncles. Yes, Josh Booty and John David Booty. One USC, one LSU. Yeah, Minnesota Vikings. Yeah, all of that. I remember those guys. In terms of him, it was simply a situation where I knew he existed because I knew that there was another one in line, kind of a poor man's version of the Manning clan. And then uh, yeah, he disappeared off to junior college, and so I've not heard much of anything.
Yeah. Yeah. He had, gosh, something like 3,000 plus yards in junior varsity college or whatever. I tried to read up quickly before calling, but frankly, I didn't have enough time to do a proper dive and, deep dive or anything like that. So it would be great if you want to look at him and discuss, that would be awesome. I would love to hear some analysis there.
Well, yeah, I got to say, what I'm looking at here, I'm not learning anything except for specific stats. These are all things that I knew about. That he was a pretty highly thought of quarterback coming out of high school, and then junior college. I don't know why he went that direction. I don't know if he had academic issues, if he had off-field issues. I don't know what the situation was there.
Well, Kirk would not recruit him if he had off-field issues. He would
Yeah,
he would not
uh,
do that. I have a
I
feeling it was to get developed, maybe.
I guess. I don't know why you're going to junior college to get developed or
Yeah, I mean, maybe the grades. I don't know. I don't know. But I know if it were a character flaw, Iowa would not be pursuing him. That much I can guarantee.
yeah, I see nothing in this 247 sports article that would lead us in any direction because yeah, he was at Oklahoma. Like, why is he going to junior college? Yeah, that's a mystery to me. That and
Yeah.
nothing's here because nobody does that these days unless they have to, unless they have academic issues, off the field issues, or they're just flat out really not good enough. And if he's I'm when I mean not good enough, I mean like he couldn't go to San Jose State and play. I mean, those that is junior college now. That's what
Well,
that is.
if he was highly, you said he was highly regarded out of high school, though, so that
Yes.
can't be the reason.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe he wasn't offered a scholarship like in the Power 5 or Power 4 or whatever, and he chose, since he was gonna have to pay, to go, a different way, take a different path. I don't know. I mean, there
Then
could be a million reasons, I suppose. I don't
yeah.
know.
Well, there could be, but I think I pretty much hit on the major ones that are going on now in current college football. Junior college has largely been just kind of knocked out of the way in favor of the transfer portal. Junior college
Mhm.
used to be a place, yes, where I used to see it all the time, especially when I was working in Mississippi down in the SEC, and you would see this all the time. You'd see high level recruits. Not that that's the only time it happened, but that's the time when I was aware of it because there were junior colleges all over the place in Mississippi that had high end players there
Mhm.
for a year because they didn't meet the academic requirements at certain schools and they had to go that route or they had off the field issues and had to go that route and then they got their act together and were able to move on to a Big Ten or an SEC school after that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and we've also been looking at some wide receivers too. I don't remember any of the names because none of them I don't think were very big names. We lost out on a wide receiver to Fresno State because of NIL, and the kid pretty much admitted it on his Twitter post.
Hmm, I
Yeah,
did
he
not
said
see
something
that.
about bread on the table. And plus he's, I think, from the Fresno area or from California, I'm not sure.
Hmm, well, if
Yeah, you can't
Iowa
be
really
losing recruits to Fresno State. That's kind of embarrassing. But if it's seriously NIL, like he tried to insinuate, then I mean, I don't know. And I also wouldn't think that Fresno would have more NIL than Iowa. That's weird to me.
that's weird to me too.
So I
So
don't know. Maybe it's a local deal.
I'm hoping that yeah, it could be a local deal. And I'm also hoping that Iowa was just interested, but not that interested to say, of course, it's you're still working with a budget.
Yeah.
Even if you've got a really good NIL situation, you're in a situation where, okay, we've got $10 million and we would be willing to pay $75,000 for this particular player. No, he got 140 somewhere. No, that's again, we're keeping in line with our player evaluation and all of that. And it could be one of those situations where Iowa could have paid it, but they want to direct their resources elsewhere.
Yeah, that could very well be because I know quarterback was a priority for them, but so was wide receiver. It was the second priority from what I've heard. So I don't know. I mean, I guess it's one of those things we'll never know. Although, like I said, his Twitter post was quite, it was quite obvious because he made a comment about putting bread on the table. So,
Oh, that probably is exactly what it had to do with. And again, the trains left the station, but again, I just that's why I was so adamant after the season ended with the portal window open in December that they should have been in the portal then. There were so many good quarterbacks. We have never seen a quarterback class like the one we saw in December.
I think part of it is that they were putting a lot slash all of the resources into Mr. Proctor, and maybe that's part of it. I don't know. I
Uh,
really don't know. All I know
yeah,
is that the collective made an obnoxious amount of money in one day when it got out, when it leaked that Proctor might come. But anyway, Proctor is just an indecisive kid.
I
So,
truly hope that Iowa did not the football program, the administration, the school, all of that, and I know that they've got plenty of money. I should not feel sorry for them, but I do in this case. I feel sorry for Iowa fans and even to the school to a certain extent because they got burned like no other school in the country multiple times
mhm,
just because homegrown product and for Iowa to have a 5-star in state and leading up to that, he was committed for 6, 7, 8 months.
right,
And
right,
then he spurns them a day before National Signing Day. And then
right.
he comes back. They roll out the red carpet and all of that. And for him to take that in, actually move back, be there, be an Iowa Hawkeye in theory. Some people would say in actuality. I call it in theory because he never produced anything.
Right.
He never did anything for the school. So all those resources, even if they never paid him a dollar, even if they got all of that back, it's time wasted. It's resources wasted, giving attention to somebody who gave you nothing back.
Yeah, Jason O is asking in the chat, did Iowa really pay that kid oh, scrolling by, sorry. Did Iowa really pay that kid 100K up front? No, we did not. The only thing he got paid was like a corporate deal, which I don't know how much money that was. But there's two sides to the collective, and I'm not the expert on this, but I've listened to interviews with the person who is in charge of it, and he said that Caden only got I don't know how many X amount of dollars from the corporate side of the collective, and from the side of the collective that fans contribute to, he didn't get a cent. So that's not true that he got paid 100K up front. No.
One big positive to all of this mess going on in court across the country, the NCAA's been in court nonstop, is that if these players do in fact get paid for playing, then I think two positives coming out of this is that they won't be able to take these schools to the cleaners and their collectives to the cleaners without reciprocating on the field. And
Hmm.
number two, there should be some semblance of some type of contract that can be signed uh, that's just simply much like a contract that any of us would sign uh, with an employer or a professional sports league where you are weighing compensation versus security. So they would come out of high school and maybe Iowa would say, here is $300,000 for 3 years, or you can make $150,000 for 1 year, or you can make whatever the equivalent 2 years for, $240,000. So you're weighing those options, and then we know that this prized cornerback coming out of Iowa is going to stay at Iowa for 3 years because he signed a contract. And I
Right.
know none of us feel, or few of us feel good about college athletics going in that direction, but at least it would calm down all of this running around constantly. And Erica, again, the Caden Proctor situation, I just think is so egregious. But I go through the transfer portal every day. We were doing a update every day for 2 weeks, and the number of athletes who were double portal entries this offseason, it's a joke when you see Kentucky wide receiver so and so, and then you look at his bio and say, well, he wasn't a Kentucky wide receiver. He was a
Right.
Fresno State wide receiver last year. He went to Kentucky, was there for a month, just drained them of their resources, wasted their time, and now he's back in the portal going somewhere else.
Well, you know what? I mean, part of the problem there is they got rid of that rule, and I don't remember exactly what the rule was, but it was something like if you transferred, you can only transfer once. Otherwise, you had to sit a certain amount of time if you transferred
Yes.
again after the first time. Wasn't it that? I think it was that.
Oh, absolutely. That
Yeah.
that
So
rule's
when the
been
second they got rid of that rule, I mean, it went very south very
well,
fast.
it was determined illegal.
The rule was determined illegal. Is that what
Yes.
it was?
That's why the NCAA lost that in
Oh my
in federal
god.
court. That's illegal. That's why if we go the route of these are employees, then many of these safeguards can be put back into place uh, because of the compensation involved, the official compensation.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't realize that was the reason why it was, like taken out. I knew it was taken out, but I didn't know that was the reason.
That's why
Wow.
inducement and tampering is now legal. The NCAA. So for as horrible uh, an organization on many fronts the NCAA has been, they did have some rules that I think would sit fairly well with the majority of college athletics fans, college sports fans, but they were not able to uh, continue those rules because of the freedom that we have as Americans, and that they were deemed illegal because they're still technically amateurs.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like that's when it went south. I understand it now that you explain it that way, but that was the start. Well, not the start of the end. The start of the end happened long ago, but that was really just another nail in the coffin there.
And here's a third good point to going forward with this, even though it's all above board in terms of the money, and it doesn't sit well with a lot of people again because it flies in the face of amateurism, that the NIL collectives, they can't do this currently. They cannot force a player to play through the bowl game because it's not pay for play.
Yeah.
This is being discussed and pretty much going to be a rule going forward. This was in the courts just this week that
Hmm.
the collectives, because it will be part of the school and the collectives, that if you sign this NIL deal, they can certainly put it in the deal going forward that, yeah, you are going to play through the bowl game. That's part of the deal. That's the season.
Yeah. Hmm. Interesting. I don't know. I feel like it's hard to keep track of all that stuff. It's changing all
Well,
the
yeah,
time.
it is.
It's
I don't
changing all
expect
the
you
time.
to. That's why I'm here, and I don't keep track of it all. Now, do I really think that that would keep? Let's say a player's making $100,000 for the season,
Hmm.
and they play a 12-game regular season, but let's say Iowa goes to the Citrus Bowl, and that's a 13th game. Now,
Yeah.
do I think that if a player says, I'm going to the NFL draft. I don't want to get hurt. I want to train. I want to do all the things to prepare myself for the Senior Bowl and the Combine, that I was going to sue that player and make him play and all this. No, but they can at least say, no, we're prorating the contract and you've got to give us back the 1/13th of the contract. Your $8,000 you have to return. At least that there's a consideration made there that they missed a
Yeah.
game.
I think that's almost fair because first of all, $8,000. I know it's an example that you pulled out of air, but that's like chump change compared to what they're about to make in the NFL. So it shouldn't be that big of a hit. Isn't it disgusting that we're talking like that?
Yeah,
We're
it
talking about
is.
college football, and we're talking about. I can't believe I just said that. You know what I mean? I'm just like, that's crazy that college football has become this.
Absolutely. I know. And see, this is one of the things that, and I've talked about this just recently a few times, and I don't know that this is being discussed, but this is what happens when the structure of the sport was built as an amateur sport. So
Yeah.
everything, like just think about the origins of college athletics and college football. It was, this is part of your education, working with a team, playing for a team, uh, health and fitness. It was just basically a club sport.
Yeah.
And so all the rules are about amateurism. And so now all this big money through television, more than anything. So the popularity of the sport has brought it into the business world, and it's become a billion-dollar industry. But the framework is all with the guides of amateurism. So that's
Yeah.
why it's so awkward, and that's why there's so many legalities and all of that involved, because we're fitting a sport into a uh, that's been built on and that has morphed into a business, a huge business, but its origin is in amateurism. So that's where all the rules, that's at least the foundation of the rules. Now, many of those rules have been changed through the years, but still the foundation of the sport is structurally an amateur sport.
Yeah. That's true. I never thought of it from that perspective. I mean, It just seems wrong. It's like the education portion of it is nothing anymore. It's all about how much can I get in NIL and how much, how much can I play, which the play part I get, like how much can I be on the field? I get that part of it. But it's so much about the money that it's like, okay, well now it's NFL junior. We've
And
had this discussion before and it's been talked about before, and I knew this before calling in today, obviously, but it's just we're talking about it again, and it's like just disgusting what it's become.
well, the problem and I'm just speaking for myself, if it were up to me and I could create this fairy tale land, these players would still be preparing themselves for the NFL if they were good enough. But and this goes back to a speech that I heard twice actually at ESPN at a luncheon with former Big Ten Commissioner Jim Delaney,
Hmm.
who was, regardless of what some people think of him, he was a great commissioner and one of the very visionaries of college football and very much in college athletics, and very much did his best to keep the academics as a priority while trying to manage this out of control industry and trying to do both at the same time. And he did a
Yeah.
rather decent job of it for a long, long time in the Big Ten. But he basically talked about what being a scholarship athlete looked like in the late 60s when he was a basketball player at North Carolina. So you get no bigger than that in terms of college basketball. But he said the difference between then and now, he said, I played in Final Fours, I played on TV. It was a big deal, but we still we only practiced a certain number of hours a week. He said the practice schedule of these players versus what it was almost like being in high school. He said we practiced our 2 hours after class, and we would have workouts and all of that, but it wasn't like a job. It wasn't obsessive, like all the time. This is all we do. This is why we're here. He said we were students that took basketball very seriously, and we had a really good team, and we played on a big time level, but it was still, we very much had it in order that we were students and we were then athletes second. And we still had players that then went on to the NBA. And if we could rewind and go all the way back and keep that in place, the NFL wouldn't be too happy about it because the players wouldn't be nearly as good, but they would still be the batch of players that they would then have to coach in the NFL. But I would go back to a system of athletics first. This is why you're here. Yes, you go to football. It's serious. It's a big deal, but it's kept within its certain number of hours a week, 15 hours or whatever that time limit is, that has through the years gotten stretched and stretched and stretched. And there used to be long periods of the off season where there was no football activity. Like if we went back to
Hmm.
1955, no football for 3 months, all those sorts of things were in play. And there was still an NFL. There were still these players still moving out of the NFL after they went to college. But see, everything I just outlined, Erica, obviously we're not going back to that, number one. Number two, it's impossible because of the money. We
Yeah.
generated too much money, and those players do have a rightful claim to say, we are the workers of $1 billion industry. Where's our take?
Yep. And it's just a reflection. I don't want to go here either. I know I'm opening a whole nother can of worms, but part of it's societal.
Oh, of course.
And yeah. So anyway, I didn't mean for it to become another bashing session of NIL and the
Oh,
changes and all
not at
this,
all.
but I meant for it to be all about the booty. Had to say it. Sorry. I'm sorry. I need to stop. Anyway, well, I'll look forward to your deep dive about general. And yeah, I'll let you go with that. Thank you very much for taking my call.
Thank you, Erica. Appreciate it.
Have a good one.
You too. Good to hear from Erica. We've got Keith on the line. Keith, I'll take your call in 2 seconds. I've got to respond to somebody on the phone with a brief uh, text here. Somebody would actually know. Uh, and here we go. Let's take Keith's call here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate everyone being here. As it states on the banner, Amazon links in the description section of all the videos. Please use the Amazon link. Keith, what's going on tonight? Thank you for your patience. Hello, Keith. Hello, Keith. We cannot hear you, although we do have a connection there. So I don't know what the issue is there. So, Keith, if you can hear me, please call us back, and hopefully the connection is better. John, thank you so much for leaving the link in the chat. Let's go to one General Booty. What a name. That's got to be a nickname. And again, this guy has been off my radar for a few years since I just knew he existed as and I didn't even know, son, nephew of, and so it's a little bit of both. Let's dive into it here because yes, he's got two famous brothers or two famous members of the family. And so let me find this. I was prepared to show all sorts of other screens involving other things going on in college football that we will get to. So let's see this with did see an article that gives us a rundown. Again, this isn't anything. Where in the world was that? I have it on my other computer. I guess we'll go to, no, it's not there. All I'm pulling up are a lot of blank stat sheets. Let's go to Bleacher Report. That should be fine. Let's just start there. Here we go. Okay. Oklahoma's General Booty enters college football transfer portal after 2 seasons with the team. Oh, okay. So he's been with the team for 2 seasons. This guy has been completely non-existent. And of course, they've got Jackson. Man, I always get them confused. Jackson Arnold, Jackson Dart, Jackson Arnold. I always get the names confused. Oklahoma, Ole Miss. So anyway, there's the starting quarterback, and then they picked up Casey Thompson, Texas, Nebraska, FAU, Oklahoma. Goodness gracious. Just more things for me to remember is where these guys played. It's no longer one school. It's like 4 schools now. So Oklahoma quarterback General Booty is reportedly entering the transfer portal after 2 seasons with the Sooners. Again, that was completely off my radar. And we did an Oklahoma show live every year for every week for 2 years. All right. During his time at Oklahoma, Booty served as backup capacity and did not accrue any stats. Well, there you go. He did not even step on the field. He's 22 now. So, yeah, he has been waiting in line for quite some time, at least, 2 seasons there after junior college. Okay. So, my conversation with Erica, to a certain extent, null and void. Okay, I get that. Comes out of high school, doesn't get the kind of offer that he's looking for. Maybe there were grades involved and some other things that he needed to clean up. Goes junior college. Okay, boom, to Oklahoma. Got it. There you see his stats in his junior college season, his 1 year, which that gets disregarded by some in terms of junior college stats. That's all over the place. That's almost like high school football stats. There are some junior colleges out there, maybe not so much as now as back in the 90s and 2000s, that are really good junior college programs with all sorts of FBS caliber players that just are there for a year. So some of these, man, I used to take in some junior college football back in the late 90s in Mississippi. And if you would see some of those lineups, within a year or two, they're SEC players. So those stats might be legit. Athletic family with uncles John David Booty and Josh Booty, USC, LSU. And now we're only going to hear about his uncles after that because, again, we're looking at their careers. John David Booty, USC. Then he goes to the NFL, 5th round pick of the Vikings. Then we've got Josh, who was at LSU for 2 seasons, 24 touchdowns, 34 picks. Was he that bad? Really? Josh Booty, 24 touchdowns, 34 picks. So he was selected in the 6th round of the NFL draft in 01. So keep this in mind. He was Bob Davies' quarterback at LSU. No. What am I thinking? He was Bob Davie was at Notre Dame. I'm thinking who played LSU in a bowl game at the end of his tenure when Nick Saban came in. Who would that have been? That was goodness. I'm drawing a blank on the LSU head coach at the end of the 90s. And shoot, I was there covering the games. I went to all sorts of LSU games in the late 90s, and I am drawing a blank on their coach who was going 6-5, 5-6 just about every year. LSU was not good during the 90s. And yeah, Josh Booty was there. And yeah, he was the one that played baseball. Yeah, it's all coming back to me. Was with the Marlins. Yeah, there it is. 13 games, which if it was anybody else, nobody would have remembered that. But because he was a big time college football quarterback and was one of those, does he do baseball? Does he do football? That it was given some attention. His 13 games with the Florida Marlins, 1996 to 98. Interesting stuff. Okay. All right, let's give Keith another shot here at the Voice of College Football. Keith calling in. Keith, what's going on tonight?
Hey, can you hear me now?
We got you.
All right, cool.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. You missed a good opportunity. Go
ahead, Keith.
Okay, you missed a good opportunity with Erica. You should have suggested they hire Brian Friends when Kirk retires.
Did we, in fact, miss a good opportunity?
You see your blood boil a little bit.
Well, I brought that up, but
did you? Okay.
Well, I said if things were different, if he was still around, then we'd be dealing with that situation.
Oh, okay. All right. I just missed it, I guess. That's fine. Yeah, so I remember you said a few weeks ago somebody was predicting Michigan was gonna struggle to win 8 games this year, and you said, I don't see any games they're guaranteed to lose, which I thought was very wise.
Well, I hope that we can exercise some wisdom around here at times. So we do our best. It's a small commodity out there, wisdom. So yeah, I am not counting Michigan out of any games this year whatsoever. None.
Yeah. We can also say that about probably the top 6 or 7 teams in the Big Ten this year too, right?
That they could win all their games?
That there's no game that they're guaranteed to lose. Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon.
Well, I take that term guarantee very seriously. So, for example, we were talking about this game the other day on the Iowa show. When Iowa goes to Ohio State, to me, that's not a guaranteed win for Ohio State. But if we're going to take it to that degree, yeah, there are tons of non-guaranteed games. Yes, USC could win all of its games. Penn State could win all of its games. Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, anybody else. Certainly, even some of those teams, it would be a surprise to me. If USC wins all of its games, if Penn State wins all of its games, I would be surprised. Now, but if you take them individually, yes, they could win all of their games.
Right. Yeah, and we'd be surprised if Michigan won all of the games this year, consider how much went pro this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be flabbergasted in any way. They're playing in Columbus against Ohio State. They've got Texas at home. And what's the other difficult one? Oregon?
Um,
Do they Oregon?
Yeah, we have Oregon in Eugene, and we have USC at home.
Okay, so 4 extremely difficult games.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to navigate that for an undefeated season, but
Yeah.
I guess once you get to our age, Keith, you've seen so much, it's hard to really shock me on any level about anything.
Oh
So
yeah.
if you told me
Yeah.
Michigan's going 12-0 this year, I would argue and say I don't see that happening, but I also wouldn't be that surprised.
Yeah, me neither. I expect our defense is going to be as good as it was last year, and that's going to win a lot of ball games if it is.
Yeah, you would think so. And I do believe the defense is going to be just as good as it was last year. But you can always look at players lost, and if you did that and that's all you did, then you would assume just about every unit across the country would be worse. But players also get developed and get better. Somebody held a gun to my head, and I had to hit Michigan's record this year, right this second. I'd say 9-3.
Yeah, I'm 10-2 or 11-1, I believe. Actually, I think um, Blake Corum got it right last year before months before the season started. He said it's all that matters is that we go 1-0 against East Carolina, and that's the way football teams should take the football season, one game at a time, 1-0. And if we do that, like you say, is that we should be in every game.
Oh, I think this team's going to be in every game. I don't see anybody. And again, we're talking about probabilities. Can there be a blowout? There can be 2 really good teams evenly matched, and on a given day, there can be a blowout. So it's not like they're incapable of being blown out. Although the likelihood of Michigan being blown out is about as low as anybody in the league because of the style of play and because of the defense.
Yes, yes. Um, but turnabout could be fair play. You have a very senior laden team this year in Ohio State, and
I was wondering who you were talking about there for a second. You were saying you have a senior laden. I didn't know who you were talking about there for a second. Okay. So you're talking about Ohio State now. Gotcha.
yeah, yeah. It's just I tell you, when we were a senior laden team last year, there were just a lot of good vibes, and I can imagine the people in Ohio are living pretty good right now. But they've got to go 1-0 too.
They have to go 1-0 against Akron.
Yep.
They have to take on the mighty Zips.
Yep.
It's a rough non-conference slate for the Buckeyes this year.
Yep. So I was naively looking for wake up college football this morning, and then I realized after looking at it for about 10 minutes ago, oh, today's Friday.
Yeah, I knew that that might be a little bit odd for some people and difficult to keep track of. But once I launched that thing, I thought, for me to do an 8 a.m. show Monday through Friday, I'm going to give myself a little bit of a break here. So once we make it to football season, we'll be on the schedule for Fridays too.
Yeah. And then you'll have 500 or 2,000 viewers instead of 50 or 75.
Okay, that sounds
Yeah.
good.
Yep. Yep. So yeah, did you see the Ross Dellinger article? I saw it on a couple other YouTube things. Some kind of, like, they're not calling it a salary cap, but they're talking about an 17 to $22 million limit on NIL per team, and supposed to be executed as early as 25. Did you see that?
I did not see that, but I'm having trouble with the thought of a cap. I don't understand how you have a cap if people are willing to donate their money. If people and businesses are willing to donate their money, then where does the cap come into play? So in Major League Sports, of course, as you well know, there's a salary cap because they're running a business, and
Right.
their business is determined by the revenue gained, which is solely a consumer transaction process of people buying tickets, watching on television, advertisers kicking in, all of that. And therefore, the NFL has a formula that says if we make this amount of money, 72% goes to the players, et cetera, et cetera. And so there's the formula that equals the cap. But when you have NIL collectives, I could say out of the abundance of all the money coming into the voice of college football with just I don't know what to do with it, Keith. I got to tell you, with the amount of money that we make on this YouTube channel every month, if I just suddenly said, you know what, I want to start giving this to my poor alma mater, Kent State, and I'm going to start giving them $100,000 a month. Well, where's the cap there? Where does that money go if it's being donated by outside companies, private companies, and individuals? How do you cap that?
Yes, unfortunately, I can't answer that. I don't know where it was from or what, but Ross Dellinger's a big name. I mean,
Oh,
he
sure.
must know something going on.
Oh, yeah. I'm not disparaging him in any way, shape, or form. Yes, he's a legitimate writer with connections and so forth. So, but that's just my question.
Yes,
I'm
that's
not
a good
saying
question. Yes, it's much more of a free market in NIL as opposed to NFL salaries. It's a structured payroll, right?
yeah. If
Yeah, and it's also possible it was just a proposal too, and because I haven't heard anything else about it, so maybe
Well,
it
if
was just
anything, it sounds like he's answering or possibly answering the question that I've had for quite some time while all of this has been brewing. And that's how much money is college football bringing in? And then once everyone gets paid, minus the players, once everyone gets paid administratively and everybody involved, and then all the facilities are taken care of, and you know, we're looking at a net revenue, then how much money is that and how much can go to the players? Because there's a lot of players that play football. It's not a basketball team. You're talking about 85 on scholarship, 105 total, which I guess those non-scholarship players really get screwed. If it's all above board, they get screwed because they don't get a scholarship, nor do they get paid. But I'm sure that they can get taken care of one way or the other. But if a team has, let's take your number, let's round it off to 20 million. If any particular team has $20 million to pay its players and there's 80 players, 85 scholarship players, then you're talking about almost $400,000 per player.
yep, that's it's real money, but in reality, though, probably only 30, 40, or maybe 50 teams could pay $20 million to its players.
Well, that's my next question. Is this a joint venture, or is it just everybody's in it for themselves and it's just the strongest survive and
Oh,
everybody's else?
I remember what it was. It was the profit sharing, splitting with the players. Yeah, when they're talking about implementing profit sharing with the players starting in 2025, and it's gonna the amount's gonna be between 17 and 22. They don't have an exact number yet.
Okay. So based on all the TV revenue and the gate and the
Yeah.
gear and all that, the merchandise that they're guesstimating at 17 to 22 million. Okay. Now,
Per-
how does that get distributed to players? Who makes that decision?
yeah, do scholarship players get it? Do
And how
starters
much
get
do
it?
they get? Does the third string left guard at Michigan get as much as Blake Corum?
Right. Yeah. Well, I think they're going to probably give you a call and have you help with all that, right?
I'm I'm open for consultation at the right figure. Sure, Keith, if you want to be my agent, absolutely. I've got my thoughts about it for sure. But man, that becomes a mess when you start paying players in terms of trying to determine their either end of the spectrum is going to be a source of possible resentment, whether you pay them all the same, and then of course there's the obvious injustice there, or if somebody has the job of determining what he's worth, seriously? Wow.
Yeah. And the other question is 20 million, and doesn't Michigan, Ohio State might make like 300 million a year?
That's the next point. Yes. I bring that up all the time.
That's not sharing very much, is it?
Exactly. Keith, as you well know, we just went through a process of having the latest college football playoff contract finalized. And what happened for the first time, and if anyone watched or would like to watch, if you're a Big 12 fan, you're not going to be too happy with me because I've already seen the backlash on Twitter, but it's just the facts that look at Brett Yormark, Big 12 commissioner, made comments this week, and I kind of laid them to waste. So check out the video, everyone. But we've gone from a system where the conferences were splitting this money regardless of who made it. The Pac-12 has not reached a playoff going from 2016 all the way up until the final season, but they still made the same amount of money as the Big Ten, and they all split. Well, going forward in 2026, it goes to 58% for the Big Ten and the SEC and 32% for the ACC and the Big 12. Well, the next step to that is Ohio State and Michigan, and fill in the blank, college football fans, of course, your favorite school, Clemson, Florida State, whomever.
Bama, Georgia.
Yeah, exactly. Saying, oh, well, wait a minute. Well, you just signed a contract to determine that the Big Ten is worth so much more money than these other conferences. Then you know why that's the case. It's because of us. Why don't we get more from that distribution? And as you well know, the disparity, if you tie it directly to popularity and brand, and the eyeballs that and the performance on the field, the disparity of that would be crazy. If it was now, do I think if that's going to happen? Is Northwestern going to be given a $3 million check every year, and Ohio State and Michigan given $300 million checks? No, but I can see it in the future, it being some kind of baseball type of medium where they say, okay, 50% of the revenue split evenly. The other 50% of the revenue is going to be tied to your performance on the field and your television draw.
Yeah, I'm afraid it's going to go the prior what you said there, is where some teams are going to get 300 million and others going to end up with 20 million.
Well, let me tell you, if these Big Ten schools are worth close to $90 million each going forward from CBS, NBC, and Fox, Northwestern's not worth $20 million.
Yeah.
They're not bringing $20 million of that gate in compared to if 90 million's the average. No, that's a wild disparity.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I think that we're headed into uncharted territory, and we're not going to recognize this sport 5 years from now. Even the playoffs, they're talking 12, 14, 16 before 12 is even set. And I wouldn't be surprised at the end of next year they said, no, we have to get these other two teams in. And because they now taking an undefeated team out of the playoffs so that they have to include the SEC conference, they've kind of opened a can of worms that anything can be done for any reason.
Yes, but just because of the number of teams involved starting this year with 12, we're not going to see that again.
Are 13 and 14 gonna sit there quietly and be kicked out of the playoffs, blocked out of the playoffs, or do you think they're gonna scream as loud as Florida State did this year?
No, 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 no. No. Huge
I
difference between those scenarios, Keith. Keith, we've had a 14 playoff for 10 years. Wasn't there always a number 5, a number 6?
There was in
Yeah.
most years it was pretty clear cut though. Yes.
Yeah, I guess. I would argue that to a certain extent. I usually had claims for number 5 and number 6, but it didn't cause that much. We're talking about a conference champion that was undefeated, was left out of the playoff. That's not going to happen anymore. It's woven into the playoff structure. It is guaranteed that the conference champions will be there, regardless of
What?
what we think of how good the champions are. They are going to be there.
Look at this scenario though. What if Texas is 13 and LSU is 14?
Yeah, that's going to
Well, then
happen.
what's that?
That's going to happen.
That's going to happen. Yeah, there could be some big brands that
They're
are
not going to be.
sitting right.
So this, Keith, again, this has been happening for decades.
That's true. That's true.
Yes.
But
The SEC is not going to go crazy when LSU gets left out at 9 and 3 at number 13 in the country, because they got Alabama there, they got Tennessee there, they've got Georgia there, and they got somebody else. They got 3 or 4 teams there anyway.
right. But in the 10 years of the playoffs, in the first 9 years of the playoffs, the undefeated teams always got in. But what I'm
The
saying is that
undefeated Power 5 teams always got in.
undefeated
Yeah.
Power 5 teams. That's correct. Yes. Thank you. Okay, but the so this last year they took a liberty and they said, hey, instead of doing it the way we always did it, we're going to do it this way. And what I'm afraid is there's this newfound freedom in the powers that be in college football, is that we're going to see all kinds of things in the next year to 5 years that our heads are going to roll.
Well, Keith, they signed a contract, whereas in the past the committee had full autonomy to do whatever it wanted to. Now, we don't know what the influences from the networks and all that. I'm not talking about that, but in a to the letter of the law sense, they could do whatever they want. They had to be able to defend it, whomever they chose as the 4 teams, but they didn't have to choose conference champions. They didn't have to choose anything. They could have chosen 4 non-conference. They could have done whatever they wanted for 10 years. Now there is structure to it. All the conference championships are making the playoffs. That's in the contract.
That's there, but isn't that contract only 2 years through 26?
The contract beyond that is the same deal. Now, I'm not saying things can't change.
I thought
If
this
the Big Ten and the
12
SEC
team.
want to leave, if the Big Ten and the SEC want to leave everybody out, and if that's what it's headed toward, sure, everything you're saying could happen. I'm just saying, based on the structure of the current, there's at least a better structure in place going forward than there is and has been.
Yeah, I just think things aren't as stable as they used to be. Talking about SEC and Big Ten leaving, I feel like that could happen any day or any week. There's stories that have popped up in the last 3 weeks of them having these different meetings and threatening to walk out already at this point.
Well, as soon as all of this came to public knowledge, and the current contract starting in 2026 was negotiated about who's going to make what, I certainly said one of 2 things is happening here. Either the Big Ten and the SEC are giving us strong indication that they are they're running the sport and they're going to take off at some point, and they figure, hey, we might as well make the most money before we break off and do our own thing. Or they threatened the ACC and the Big 12 to say, we will go do our own playoff if you do not concede to a 58-32 split on this money. I would hope that the SEC and the Big 10 would be a little smarter than that and would understand that they can run the sport, but still have everyone participate.
Yeah. Well, like I say, I'm just interested every month and every year about what's coming up. You know, we know there's going to be conference reorganization and all kinds of stuff. Yes. Can I say something real fast about basketball?
Well, we'll test you on how fast you can talk. Sure.
Okay. Um, Michigan just hit the #1 rank in the transfer portal. They've got four 5 stars and 2 4 stars coming in. That's good. 2 7-footers, but I know it's a college football show, but I just wanted to give that update that Dusty May, our new basketball coach, is really knocking the ball out of the park.
My day is now complete, Keith.
Okay.
Thanks for
All right.
joining, Keith. Have a good night, sir.
Always good talking to you, Mark.
Absolutely. Can't get enough basketball news here at the Voice of College Football. People think I hate basketball. I don't hate basketball. I covered it for a long time. I know I'm just a kid, but I did cover it for a long time. I do like basketball. If you forced me to watch a basketball game right now, it would not pain me in any way. Now, if you forced me to watch a soccer game, I probably wouldn't be watching for long because I would be sleeping. But a basketball game, absolutely. I've watched tons of NBA and college basketball in my lifetime. Porter is letting us know that Jerry DiNardo was the head coach prior to Nick Saban. That is the first name that was in my brain immediately. However, my brain sometimes tricks itself into thinking, I was like, Jerry DiNardo was the head coach before Nick Saban, because I can't think of anybody before in between those two. But I thought, I don't think he coached all the way till 2000. He did. Yeah, Jerry DiNardo was there in 1999. Of course, Saban took over in 2000 and then made the big run to the SEC championship in 01, won the Sugar Bowl as well. And DiNardo was there in 95. So I saw a ton of LSU, Ole Miss, Alabama, LSU, and LSU Mississippi State games during that time. And a lot of people out there that are a bit younger, you just assume, well, if LSU is not that good, they will be good because they're loaded with talent and they're a blue blood and they're one of these great programs that's can do whatever it wants and should be near the top. LSU from the late 80s up until the time Nick Saban arrived, they had a run in the SEC for about 12 years where they won like 40% of their games in the conference and barely won 50% of their games, period. DiNardo went 4-7, 7-4-1, 10-2, 9-3, 4-7, 2-8. And I know this is a Big Ten show. Our SEC show has yet to be announced. All right. Amazon links in the description section of all the videos. Doesn't cost you a penny. Same shopping experience. Unfortunately, our USC show that is every Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 on the West Coast, will not be happening tonight. Unfortunately, Tim's under the weather, so we hope and pray Tim's doing just fine. We'll get better. Tim, get better soon. And the USC show, not this Friday. The next time you will see me Well, that could be anytime. You can always see, I pop up whenever. If I've got something to say, then I'm going to be here. There will be videos posted on Saturday and Sunday of some form in terms of a live show. The next time you will see me for sure, again, could be Saturday, could be Sunday, but if not, it will be Wake Up College Football, bright and early Monday morning. You can catch us Monday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Would love to have you for Wake Up College Football. Comments and questions in the chat, we will take those. And of course, the link is in the chat as well if you want to call the show here at the Voice of College Football. I also wanted to get, I think I pretty much cleared out all those thoughts concerning Miami. Check out the video that I posted, Miami to the Big 12. And then also check out the video. So I took all sorts of ire from Big 12 fans. And yes, this is connected to the Big 10. So we had Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark made some comments to reporters this week. First of all, we've got Miami Destination, got 140 votes. I just posted that right before we came on tonight. So there's 140 votes on my X feed, and we see that the Big Ten is leading at 36%. You can also vote on this community page on the YouTube channel right here. All right, getting to more pertinent matters. Okay. So I posted a video this week. Brett Yormark, Big 12 commissioner, made some statements. And okay, well, first of all, his role as Big 12 commissioner is to give an optimistic and confident outlook for his conference. He can't say, oh, we're in trouble and what's going on, and the Big Ten and the SEC are taking over. We don't know what we're going to do. We're getting squashed. We're only going to make X number of dollars per team. Who's going to be watching us on TV? We just lost Oklahoma and Texas. We just lost 14 of our top 17 rated games on television last year. He shouldn't be saying any of that. So I disclaimed during this video to say, I'm not saying that he said anything wrong in terms of the context of trying to give a positive impression of his league and its cooperation with everyone else. However, he said some things that he should have just not said as much as he did, because he sounded disingenuous, because this stuff is just blatantly not true. And some Big 12 fans didn't like what I had to say. So check out the video, but I'll give you the highlights here, because some Big 12 fans were saying, I unsubscribe to you, and Mark's bashing the Big 12 again. Well, when Brett Yormark makes comments about that the cooperation between the leagues has never been greater, the cooperation and the equality between the leagues has never been greater. What are you talking about? It has never been this much of a disparity. That's absurdity. So I pointed this out. Simply that the gap between the Big Ten and the SEC and the Big 12 and the ACC has never been larger, meaning television revenue per season. Also, the Big Ten and the SEC have just now taken on 6 excellent football programs, to some degree, excellent football programs. Oklahoma, Texas at the top, UCLA at the bottom, USC at the top, etc. So there's a range there, but they're all value plays to a large degree. The Big 12 did expand as well, but there's no comparison between Colorado, Utah, Arizona State, and what the Big Ten has taken on, and the SEC. So they're only getting bigger, more powerful, more winning, quality of play, TV ratings, brand, the SEC and the Big Ten have only been strengthened much greater during the offseason than what the Big 12 was able to do. And the Big 12 did a great job of just basically standing with its arms open and waiting for the Big Pac-12 to collapse. Okay, so he makes a statement in there about this great cooperation and equality. As I just mentioned to Keith on the previous phone call, the TV revenue split for the playoff and before that, the BCS, was equal. These conferences treated each other equally. Their contracts, their agreements were as equals previously. Now there's a 58-32% split. That's not equal. I don't know if you're a math major. You don't have to be one. 58 versus 32%. $21 million for every Big Ten and SEC school, and 13 or 12 million, depending, for Big 12 and ACC schools. That's a huge so 21 million, 13 million doesn't sound like a big deal. No, multiply that per school. 21 times 18, 21 times 16 versus 13. You're looking at an $8 to $9 million disparity per school. Multiply that by 16 or 18. You're talking $160 million. And then you're talking about a 6 to 8 year contract. You're talking about almost $1 billion difference in revenue split. But Brett Yormark is saying we cooperate better than, I don't think that there have ever been any commissioners that have cooperated better than we have. Okay, if that's the result, of course the Big Ten and SEC commissioners are cooperating. Of course, yes, they are. Then if you take the new members of the SEC and the Big Ten and the new members of the Big 12 and the ACC, and you look at this past NFL draft, look at this disparity. The Big Ten and the SEC had 24 players selected in the first round of the NFL draft. The ACC and the Big 12, 5. For the entirety of the draft, the Big 10 and the SEC, 142 players drafted. The Big 12 and the ACC, 82. And then on top of all of that, how much cooperation are you getting? And what is the great synergy and the great level of cooperation and camaraderie between these leagues and these commissioners when the Big Ten and the SEC form an advisory committee by themselves, don't even mention the Big 12 or the ACC, and basically lay out all the main talking points and huge topics in college football right now and say, we are going to do something about these. Not, we're all going to work together to do something about all of these items. No, the Big Ten and the SEC said, we are going to drive the sport. And so I just lay it out there in a very obvious way. You don't need to read tea leaves. We see what's happening. And then I got Big 12 fans who are upset at me about trashing their league. Not trashing their league. I like Big 12 football. I enjoy Big 12 football. I've probably watched more Big 12 football than 90% of the people that watch me that like the Big 12. But those are the facts. This is what the situation is. Don't get mad at me. I am merely the messenger. All right, Nick's here. Nick, thank you so much for being here. I have not witnessed so much booty on your show. It is quite the historic event here at the Voice of College Football. Yeah, and the StreamYard links in the chat if you want to make a booty call. All right, this is what a good guy Moose is. I even went back and forth with Moose on Twitter today, X, and we went back and forth about the NFL draft and Ohio State and Michigan, and I looked a few things up, and Moose and I went back and forth. And look at Moose, even after us arguing on X today, this guy's phenomenal. Moose, thank you so much for doing this. And what you get for the membership here at the Voice of College Football is you got all these fancy emojis that you can use when commenting about your favorite teams and your least favorite teams. And let it be noted, everyone, I forgot about this until I checked out the emojis that we put together like a year ago. I had forgotten I selected these. I left it up to you. I said, okay, the loudest and the largest quantity and the first people to comment back to me about what emojis they want, then those are going to be the emojis that we deliver here. And as somebody so astutely pointed out the other night, those numbers of emojis are directly tied to the number of channel members. So if we get 1,000 channel members, we could have like 50 emojis, but we only have 50 or whatever the number is. And therefore we've got, I believe, 8. Let's see here. Let's check out our emoji situation. See what you're missing out on. Let's see what you are missing out on with our fine emoji content here. Where do we find this? I believe we find it. I'm doing my best, folks. We may not be able to find the emojis. I came across the emojis this week, and I thought, I haven't seen these in forever. But we selected the emojis, and is that it? Oh, shoot. Anyway, we're not going to waste your time. We're going to talk college football. We've got Porter on the line. So we will get to Porter. Porter, what's going on tonight?
Hey, good evening, Mark.
Good evening. How are you?
Hello to everybody. Hello to everybody in the chat. Hey, I had to laugh. I heard the your discussion with Steve Dice. That guy's really interesting. I could just listen to that guy for hours. But it was funny because the comment he made, I'm an SEC guy. I went to Georgia, but I've got some Big Ten roots. So I enjoy the show. I enjoy the, talking about the Big Ten a little bit. What cracked me up was the comment he made about, in Michigan, we really don't care about wide receivers. Do you remember that? Remember he said that? He said, we kind of have serviceable wide receivers. Do you remember that comment?
Oh, yeah.
Which is ironic because as a boy living in Metro Atlanta in the late 70s and early 80s who just loved college football, who do you think was my favorite player in the Big Ten?
Desmond Howard.
No, it was, number one in the late 70s.
In the late 70s. I missed the decade. I thought
Anthony Carter.
The late 80s. Oh, Anthony Carter. Sure.
Yeah, Anthony Carter was
Anthony Carter.
He was the most exciting guy in the Big Ten, I thought,
in
the late 70s. So anyway, I just had to laugh when he said that because that's the one player that I think about when I think about, my love of college football and in Michigan was Anthony Carter. I don't quite remember Rick Leach, though. Do you remember Rick Leach?
Oh, I do. He's the first quarterback I remember watching on the Michigan sideline. Yeah, on the Michigan side. I don't remember the 76 game. I remember seeing 22-0 Michigan on the screen and like being so angry. I don't know where that anger came from because I had just become a college football fan, but I remember just being so angry. I was basically foaming at the mouth with my fist, like practically hitting the glass on the TV screen and seeing 22-0. That was the 76 game. Then 77, 78. I remember watching those games.
So you weren't a fan quite when, I don't remember this game, but I read about it. I want to say the first Sugar Bowl indoors was it Ohio State and Alabama?
I believe that the previous season Pitt, Georgia, when Pitt won the national championship. Wasn't that in the Superdome?
Yeah, that was 76. That was the 76 season. But yeah, I thought, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. The next season was the Alabama Ohio State game.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I watched that game. 35-6, Bama took it to them. Yep.
Yeah. That was, I, I guess I don't really until Schleister got there. I don't really remember Ohio State. What was Ohio State like from the mid '70s to the late '70s? I don't really remember them competing until '79.
Well, from 68 when they won the national championship, and then in 69 when they were supposed to win the national championship, and it was Bo's first year at Michigan, and they lost, still finished number 3 in the country. They were about as good as anybody from like 68 to 75. They went to 4 consecutive Rose Bowls. They went to 4 consecutive Rose Bowls. The last Rose Bowl they went to was after the 75 season, and they were number 1, consensus number 1, and were upset by UCLA, a team they beat by 3 touchdowns in the regular season, and lost to Dick Vermeil in the Rose Bowl in the 76 Rose Bowl. So they were like on the cusp of national championships every year from 68, excluding like 71. They had a down year, but basically from 68 through 75. Now in 76, that game that they played against Michigan and that I referenced, the first one I have any recollection of, and they lost by 22 points. Well, they would have been in position to possibly play for a national championship that year, but Michigan went to the Rose Bowl after they went and they beat Colorado in the Orange Bowl. They finished in the top 6 or 7 in the country in 76. 77, they were in a good position to possibly compete for a national championship. I'm not saying they were good enough, because then they lost to Michigan, they lost to Bama in the 77 Sugar Bowl. When I say 77, I mean the 77 season in the Sugar Bowl, and they finished 9-3, like number 9 in the country. And then 78 was the season they really fell off the rails. That's Schleister's first year. That was Woody's last year when they lost to Clemson in the Gator Bowl. But they still were playing for the Big Ten championship, even in that bad season. We're still playing Michigan for the Big Ten championship in 78. And then that leads us to Earl Bruce 79, playing USC in the Rose Bowl at 11-0. So they really didn't have truly a down year. No, they slid slightly.
So there were some polls that would award a national championship before the bowl game, and I want to say, when did that stop? Because I want to say Bama claims one where they claimed a national championship, then they lost to either Nebraska or Notre Dame in the bowl game.
Yeah, like 73, right?
So if Ohio State was consensus number 1 going into the Rose Bowl, shouldn't they have, if that was still the case, where they award a national championship?
They were done doing that.
Yeah, I thought so.
And I can't give you an exact date. I should look that up, because Ohio State does the same thing in 1970. They were undefeated, number 1, and they lost to Jim Plunkett and Stanford in the Rose Bowl, and they still received some national championships from X, Y, and Z services out there. I don't know. But that's a great question. It's right around 73, 74 when they stopped that. And, you're starting to jar my memory, because I came across something the last few years that talks about when that truly became a thought process that, okay, we just watched, and it might be the Orange Bowl that you're referencing, Bama and Notre Dame in 73, a 24-23 game, I believe.
Oh, that was a Sugar Bowl. I think they lost to Nebraska Orange Bowl.
One of those games in there around 73, where it was thought, okay, what are we doing here? And because again, there was a evolution of these bowl games being, okay, these are just rewards for the players, and this to no, zillions of people are watching these games. They're important, and like we should be recognizing them as, the players are playing just as hard, and they're actually more valid than most of the regular season games, because they're the best teams in college football playing each other. So let's count this toward a national championship.
Yeah, and I want to say Notre Dame would never go to bowl games up until maybe the 70s. Is that right?
Yes. Even their 66 team that was voted the national champion with the tie against Michigan State would not go to a bowl game.
Yeah, I wonder why that was. It didn't make a lot of sense, because they've got because I remember, a lot of great Notre Dame bowl games in the 70s, mainly the Cotton Bowl, a couple Cotton Bowls that were really important. And I know they won the 77 national championship when they beat Texas.
Yep.
And then they had that great comeback against Houston, Joe Montana. I don't think they were under consideration for a national championship, but
Notre Dame played in just one bowl game prior to 1970. They played in the 25 Rose Bowl, and then after that, they did not show up until they played Texas, a number one Texas team in the Cotton Bowl in 1970.
How about that? Huh. Well, I enjoy the discussion on here. I really appreciate the camaraderie we have in the chat, and what do you think? I know every year there's been a big story. I think I ask you this every offseason. Going into the 21 season, it was Texas and Oklahoma leaving, and the year after that, it was Southern Cal and UCLA leaving. And I'm trying to remember what it was last year, but what do you think? You think there's going to be a big offseason story this year?
The way this Clemson Florida State situation with the ACC is being pushed back further, and we ran through the timeline the other day on our Florida State show because the federal court basically told Florida State that they needed to get their act together with their evidence and not treat it like a trial. And they didn't really, and maybe Florida State did that intentionally. There's some theories out there that they wanted to kind of present it kind of clumsily so that they could get a tip from the judge on how to proceed from there. That pushed that back a week, and now the ACC has 3 weeks to, and then this is running into another date that was supposed to be in August that's going to get pushed back. So my thought is that what we might have been able to get settled in the off season concerning especially Florida State, because they were first to the court, but also Clemson, will not be decided during this off season. I thought that was going to be the big story, or I thought it had a good chance of being resolved in a very nasty way, I'm sure. I don't know if all of what we're hearing in realignment and what could be possible, I don't think Miami's going to do anything until the Florida State Clemson situation. I think that's going to unravel the top of the ACC, and I think the rest of the conference is going to hang on for dear life and try to hold itself together. They certainly have enough schools to do that. They don't have enough value, but they've got enough schools. So all this talk about Miami to the Big 12 that's come up recently, I think that's going to follow in the order that we're seeing with Clemson and Florida State. And it would be, unless I'm missing something, not wise for Miami to act before they see what happens with those two court rulings.
What worries me about the courts is, and I'm pretty right of center politically, but what worries me about the courts, especially the Supreme Court, is they have a very pro right to work leaning, if you've noticed that.
Yes. Yeah.
And they're kind of laissez-faire when it comes to this kind of stuff, very libertarian. So I could see them doing something crazy like, I don't know, just saying that, all scholar athletes have to be released out of their scholarships or something crazy like that. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it'll be that radical, but it's really, we need some type of higher power to kind of put a lid on this stuff, or not, or it's just going to go crazy. And I know I sound like millions of other people that love the sport that are concerned, but if these courts are as libertarian as they have been, and these kids can make as much money as they want, it can come and go as much as they want. I mean, it's a vicious cycle.
Well, like I was talking about with Erica on an earlier call, I don't like the direction of it, but at least now that it's gotten to this point, the positive that could come from it is that if it truly does become a business, then there are guidelines and guardrails and all of that that's placed on player movement, on forcing players to complete seasons and play postseason bowl games, all of those things then can come back into line. We're kind of in this in-between stage where they can pretty much do whatever they want.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, all right, man. Good talking to you.
Well, Porter, before I let you go, I've got some answers to both of our questions, and now I'm going to read this. I hope it sticks to my brain so I can answer your question later or anybody else's concerning the bowls and the national championships being awarded. So, yes, awarded and voted and so forth before the bowls played. This changed when the AP champion was crowned after the bowls in 1965. Then in 66 and 67, they went back to doing it before. And then in 68, they went to awarding that after the bowl games in 1968 onward. The coaches poll didn't do so until 1974.
Yeah, I thought that's the case. Yeah. That's how Bama could claim one of those games in the early 70s where they lost their bowl game. That makes sense.
So, yes. So that came together. I knew the timing, but I just didn't know exactly. Yep.
Yeah. All right, my friend. Good talking to you. Have a good weekend. Thanks.
Appreciate it. You too. Always good to hear from Porter. Porter comes in with some knowledge and good perspective, and we run in line in regards to timelines and about the time that we started watching college football. So always good to hear from Porter. Moose is gifted 5 Voice of College Football memberships, so use them wisely. I don't know the process of how that works. Somebody in particular, Moose tonight, Jackson coming up here, gifting a membership, and then YouTube does its magic and they roll around an algorithm and spit them out to somebody. So you get your Discord link where you can talk college football with college football fans 24/7, 365. Even when we're not around talking college football, you can get on the Discord link. You can post whatever you want, not whatever you want. Let's be careful what we post in the Discord link. College football and shoot. You guys can post recipes or you can post about what you did on Friday night. You know, hey, you don't have to stick to nuts and bolts and X's and O's, but within reason on the Discord link. That is one of the options and one of the benefits there. Also, as a member of the Voice of College Football community here, you can join our College Football After Dark show with Ben, with Jackson, with others. It's open. It's got the same basic crowd from what I can tell, just about every Sunday night. However, it's open to all of you to be on the panel and discuss college football. So if you're a member on Patreon or right here at the Voice of College Football on YouTube, you can be a panel member during the Sunday night College Football After Dark show. You can also make a request of exclusive content. Do that as well. So just hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail if you've got a request for, if you've got an item that you think Mark's not going to produce a video or any content or discuss this or do a live stream on this particular topic, but I'd love to see him break this down. You can make that request again as a YouTube channel member or as a Patreon member as well. In terms of all the betting advice and the, it's really not betting advice. I just flat out make predictions. We may be doing some different things with that coming in the fall, but we will have you stay tuned for that. I am not a handicapper. I'm not an odds maker. I'm not a professional at that. However, I hit them pretty well. I'm not encouraging you to do this, but if you took $100 and put them on all my against the spread, the point spread games, those predictions, and also the money line predictions, you would have cleared over $9,000 this past college football season. All right, we wanted to get to this item as well. And Jackson, thank you so much for that. Jackson is gifted a Voice of College Football membership. And as I was looking for these emojis, and I'm going to save you all the pain and heart Yeah, the pain of watching me search for these emojis. I'll find them after the show, and then we'll be able to show you the emojis. But I was ready to point out that Michigan fans should be proud of me that we have a Michigan emoji. We do not have an Ohio State emoji because I left it up to all of you, and whoever was the loudest and the most vocal and the most adamant and the first ones to suggest emojis, we only had about 8 that we could deliver. In Michigan, Oregon, and USC, I believe, are the team emojis that we have. And then we've got some other ones, little national championship trophies, etc. Also wanted to get to this. Whether this becomes a long discussion or not, we shall see. But it's a bit of an update in regards to Big Ten coaching personnel. And so we thank The Athletic for posting this. And so these are the coaching changes in regards to head coach, coordinators on both sides of the ball this offseason. Whoop. Stability breeds winning. Winning breeds stability. They go hand in hand, chicken and the egg. Who can figure out what comes first? But you need stability to win in college football for the most part. And that's always been the case. So you don't want to be changing coaches every 2 or 3 years. However, especially these assistant coaches talk about nomadic lifestyles. They are all over the place. This is the new and the old in the Big Ten this year. At Illinois, they have continuity across the board with Brett Bielema as head coach, offensive coordinator Barry Lunney. Remember him as quarterback at Arkansas. And Aaron Henry for a second consecutive year as defensive coordinator, taking over for, of course, Ryan Walters, who was the DC for a number 1 ranked Illinois defense 2 seasons ago and went to Purdue. Kurt Cignetti, of course, coming in from James Madison to Indiana to head up the Hoosiers, with Mike Shanahan as offensive coordinator, Bryant Haynes as defensive coordinator. So we've got one of the most successful names in college football, period, heading up the Indiana offense. Of course, Kurt Cignetti said, what did he say at his introductory basketball game? Purdue sucks. Michigan sucks. Ohio State sucks. I don't know what that says about Indiana. Kirk Ferentz, of course, big announcement here. The head coach at Iowa. Tim Lester comes in from Western Michigan after a 1-year hiatus with the Green Bay Packers, I believe, at the NFL. Phil Parker, arguably the greatest defensive mind in college football. Maryland, continuity there. Mike Loxley, Josh Gaddis, offensive coordinator, of course, formerly of Michigan and Miami. Brian Williams is the defensive coordinator at Maryland. Of course, a whole new staff at Michigan for the most part. Sharon Moore, Kirk Campbell, and Wink Martindale coming in from the NFL. He has not coached in college football since the early 2000s. Kirk Campbell was on staff as quarterbacks coach, and Wink Martindale, of course, highly involved in that Baltimore Ravens influenced defensive staff with Mike McDonald and company. Michigan State, Jonathan Smith, Brian Lindgren as offensive coordinator, and Jonathan Smith was able to lure Joe Rossi from Minnesota, where he had been since 2017. Coordinators don't stick around typically for 7 seasons at a stop, but Joe Rossi was with PJ Fleck going back to 2017, but he leaves for Michigan State. There we see Minnesota with Fleck, Greg Harbaugh / Matt Simon as co-offensive coordinators. Corey Hetherm is the new DC with the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Matt Rule has been able to sustain his staff for a second consecutive year with Matt Rule, Marcus Satterfield, and Tony White. What a job David Braun did with Northwestern. I could argue that that was the best coaching job in the last few seasons. Zach Lujan is the offensive coordinator. Tim McGarrigle. That name is awfully familiar. Can't come up with his past, though. Tim McGarrigle. Okay, Ohio State, of course. Ryan Day has hired his former mentor, Chip Kelly, to run the offense, and Jim Knowles is back on defense for his third season since coming in from Oklahoma State. Dan Lanning, Will Stein, Tosh Lupoy as defensive coordinator at Oregon. James Franklin has two new coordinators. Andy Kudlnicki is the offensive coordinator. Tom Allen, of course, former IU head coach, running the defense with Manny Diaz leaving for Duke. Purdue has continuity for a second consecutive season with Ryan Walters. Graham Harrell, the offensive coordinator, coming in, of course, had been at USC, a couple other stops, and of course had a prolific quarterbacking run at Texas Tech. Kevin Kane is the DC at Purdue. Rutgers, Greg Schiano. Kirk Sharaka has been all over the Big Ten. And then you got Joe Harris-Smile as defensive coordinator at Rutgers. I don't recall what happened to their defensive coordinator at Rutgers. They've been really good on that side of the ball. Let's see here. Rutgers defensive coordinator. So Harris-Smile. His last job. Okay, so he was co-defensive coordinator with Rossi at Minnesota in 2020 and 21. And it's showing that that he's okay, that's right. So he's back for his second consecutive year as Rutgers DC. All right, UCLA with three new head coach coordinator positions. Deshaun Foster, of course, Eric Bieniemy, longtime Colorado Buff, NFL stint with the Kansas City Chiefs, most notably, and Akaika Malo. And we will need to learn about him. Don't know anything about him at UCLA. USC with a new defensive coordinator in D'Anton Lynn. They took him from UCLA. Lincoln Riley, Josh Henson back in those positions. And in Washington is one of the biggest turnovers in college football history. New head coach, two new coordinators, new coaching staff. Okay, that always goes along with the new head coach. However, they only have two starters back. Change at quarterback, two starters on both sides of the ball, and a new conference. Jed Fish with Brendan Carroll as OC at Washington. Steve Belichick, familiar name at defensive coordinator with the Huskies in Wisconsin with Luke Fickell. Where do I know that name? There was a combination of Will Ferrell and Luke Fickell there, I guess, but I think there is a Luke Farrell somewhere in my brain. Anyway, Phil Longo, offensive coordinator, and Mike Tressel, of course, after he's bounced around the MAC in the Big Ten, son of Jim Tressel. Just thought I'd catch you up on all of that since I saw that in The Athletic. Anything else interesting? Okay. All right, folks, appreciate you being here. The Voice of College Football. Again, the Amazon links in the description section of all the videos, including this one. Please shop Amazon, and when you do, please use our link. And we will see you certainly on Monday morning for college football. Wake up, college football. Everything we've got here, the Voice of College Football, starts with college football, except for Wake Up College Football. There we go. 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Monday. And again, as we talked about at the top of the show, can't wait to do this. Can't wait to unveil our all-time program rankings. I'm going to give you a glimpse. Let's do that. A glimpse of what we're going to present and then debate next week. So what you are about to see You're going to get a quick flash, and then it's going to be taken away. It reminds me of when I was at ESPN, and my first job at ESPN was in a department that was basically an extension of the programming department. It was the execution side of the programming department. And we had screeners on staff. Fortunately, I never had to do that job. I did it just because everybody at one point was supposed to learn how to screen shows, screen games. I hated it. Fortunately, again, there were employees there that had to do it for 7-8 hours every day, reviewing. So it was just, yeah, I'm not going to go into the details of what he had to do as a screener, but forget it. No, not doing that. Anyway, didn't have to deal with that. Again, did it 4 or 5 times to have some appreciation for what I had to manage. And so, why to bring that up? Oh, because you'd have to be listening for this was a very minute part of the job, but have to be listening for profane language. And we had a meeting once, this happened several times, where there was a sheet that was passed around that had the list of words that had to be banished and could not be aired. So if this ever came across on a broadcast or any type of show, they had to be eliminated, those words. Oh, the process of going through this was, yeah, this is, oh man, this is jarring my memory of, oh my, there would be hours spent on, oh, did we faintly hear the S word? Did we faintly hear that in the crowd? Oh, you listen to that, headphones, get it, let's take it over to this department, let's get it cleaned off. Oh, that's going to air at 3 a.m. Anyway, and sometimes it would draw more attention to the issue. Okay, without going at all that, this reminds me of when we did not receive like an email or a notification or an official document that said these are the words to be looking out for. You simply got to look at it, and then you had to, I guess, we had to have telephotic memories. Is that the term? What am I missing there? I'm losing it here late in the show. But we could only look at this paper for 15 or 20 seconds, and then pass it on to the next person. We somehow had to remember these words, this profanity. It was I thought it was stupid. Thought it was comical. Okay. So next week, we release our program rankings all time, go through all the conferences, look at all this business I'm going through. And then we will do live streams to follow those up to discuss right here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you stopping by, and we will see you on Monday for sure, and probably sometime before that. So have a great weekend, and be looking out for more college football content right here. See you next time.